Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, March 21st, 2019. I'm Yvette Bowens with the details. The two election petitions filed by the opposition New Democratic Party challenging the results of two constituencies in the December 2015 general elections were dismissed today by the High Court. The petitioners' lawyers voiced their disappointment, while the respondents were very much pleased with the ruling handed down by Justice Stanley John. Larissa Pugsley-Kidd tells us more in this report.
Stanley John, in his ruling today, Thursday, March 21st, said the court found no evidence to support the petitioner's challenge of the results of the two constituencies in the December 2015 elections, adding that the court is satisfied that the elections in Central Leeward and North Windward were conducted in accordance with the election laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Further, he said the acts and omissions of the presiding officers and the returning officers either separately or collectively affected the final results of the elections. Thus, Justice John declared that both Montgomery Daniel and Sir Louis Stray could be validly returned as members of Parliament for North Windward and Central Leeward, respectively. Prior to his announcement, Justice John pointed out that there were many issues raised during the trial and outlined the important questions raised on issues such as the improper use of ballot boxes, evidence on breach of secrecy and impartiality, the provision of Form 16 statement of polls, and the failure on the part of the respondents to provide a paper trail for the Form 16 statement of polls. Justice John said the only evidence found which shows partiality was towards presiding officer Winston Games, who wasn't called to the stand during the trial. Since the case did not go in favor of the petitioners, Justice John asked that they pay the respondents' costs to be assessed if not agreed. Speaking to the media after the dismissal of the case, the petitioners' lawyers said they will have to read the judgment, which was not readily available at the present time.
I've had an opportunity to read the judgment. I'll make a comment. Well, of course, we had hoped to be successful, but I'll make a comment as soon as I've had an opportunity to read the judgment.
I assure you that we are prepared. That's what I can say.
You're prepared for?
We are prepared, if needs be, for the next step. But I have to speak with the team, I have to speak with the clients, and of course I have to speak to Mr. John QC, who is for Central.
I have to read the judgment first because that judge saw no evidence of any wrongdoing. That's what he says. He saw no evidence. So let me read it.
As I said, we still have to have a discussion, form a postmortem, and decide on next steps. There are always next steps.
Lawyer for the respondents, Carlos James, said he is pleased with the ruling.
Pleased with the outcome, the ruling. I think in the interest of justice, he had the petition before the court, and the court made a decision as to the manner in which the elections were conducted.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Dr. Gordon Friday expressed his disappointment with the ruling and told his supporters not to be dismayed.
We will go to them and give the people the assurance that we will take whatever is necessary, steps are necessary politically to hold this government accountable and to ensure whenever elections are held that they are done without the irregularities and illegalities that we saw in the past. This is not a time for us to be dismayed, for us to be mourning, for us to be weeping. This is a time for us to galvanize ourselves into action so that we understand what we are up against and to ensure that what happened in the last elections never happens again in St. Vincent.
Reporting for SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
Supporters of the opposition New Democratic Party who were outside the courthouse were visibly upset with the ruling. They voiced their opinions robustly and walked through the streets of Kingstown calling for justice.
Persevered, and we have surmounted them, and we have gone forward. This petition was never supposed to come to trial. That's right.
Upset and disenfranchised. Democracy and justice really gone. Double trading gone. They're nice. All the evidence they come on.
What I want to say is justice is really gone. I am upset because the restrictive and the election.
4 Vincentians who were named on the Queen's New Year's Honours List received their awards yesterday at a reception and investiture ceremony held at the residence of the Prime Minister, culminating the activities held throughout the day for the visit of their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall to SVG. SVG-TV's Barvin Oliver tells us more in this report.
4 Vincentians who were named on the Queen's New Year's Honours List and received their awards was Dr. Cecil Cyrus, who received the Civilian Award of Knight Commander of St. Michael and St. John for his contribution in medical and health services. Derry Williams received the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for his work in the area of banking and finance. Corsell Robertson also received the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for her work in civil aviation, while Patricia Cumberbatch received the Commonwealth Point of Light Award for her work on behalf and support of persons with disability. Speaking at the investiture ceremony was Governor General Sir Frederick Ballantyne, who took the opportunity to highlight the significance of the Point of Light Award presented to Patricia Cumberbatch.
4 persons: Mr. Derry Williams for his contribution to banking, Ms. Corsell Robertson for her contribution to the airport, our esteemed and famous surgeon Cecil Cyrus, and finally Mrs. Patricia Cumberbatch. Ms. Patricia Cumberbatch is receiving a Points of Light Award. It is the first time that this award is given in St. Vincent. She is the 58th member of the Commonwealth to receive this award. It's an award given to persons who have made significant contribution to the society, especially to those persons who are disabled. Keep in mind that the Commonwealth consists of 53 countries with a population of some 2.4 billion persons.
His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, who is the heir apparent to the British throne, took the opportunity to express his gratitude with the hospitality shown to him and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, by the Vincentian public. He said many Vincentians continue to make their contributions here at home and in Britain, with many serving in the British Armed Forces. He said it is his hope that this tradition of service continues into the future.
If I may say so, I'm also very proud to acknowledge the remarkable contribution made over many years by all the marvellous Vincentian sailors who have served or who serve today in the Royal Navy. More than from any other country in the Caribbean, as it turns out, as well as those personnel who have served in other branches of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, and whom, incidentally, it is always a great joy to meet during my visits to ships and military units. It was therefore important to me that we could meet veterans today who have played their part in that proud tradition of service. I hope too that we may also have met 1 or 2 young Vincentians who will continue that tradition in the future.
For SVG-TV Evening News, I am Barvin Oliver.
Meanwhile, Prince Charles, the heir apparent to the British throne, said he was pleased with work done in SVG to protect the fragile ecosystem. Speaking at the investiture ceremony yesterday afternoon at the Prime Minister's residence, Prince Charles said climate change poses a serious threat to the small island states such as SVG. He said he saw firsthand the devastation caused by weather events when he made visits to hurricane-ravaged islands Dominica and the British Virgin Islands in 2017. The Prince said the protection of ecosystems is paramount and praised the work done by former Member of Parliament Dr. Gerald Thompson as he continues in his efforts to save the mangrove swamps.
Just how much this matters to all of you, as indeed to the precious ecosystems of these islands and the seas that surround them. And as all of you know only too well, the health of our oceans is absolutely critical to our shared survival, and we must act to protect them before it is too late. So I've been enormously encouraged and impressed, therefore, to hear today about some of the marvellous work being done in St. Vincent to protect your very special natural environment. And I was particularly glad to meet Dr. Gerald Thompson this morning and to see for myself his remarkable efforts to save and expand this island's utterly essential mangroves. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commonwealth faces the immense...
Prince said along with climate change, youth empowerment is also of great importance. He said it is hoped that Vincentian youth can benefit from a fund which he set up over 40 years ago to help with the development of young people.
When I started my Prince's Trust in the United Kingdom 43 years ago, in order to help young people who may have experienced the most challenging circumstances and difficulties in their lives by giving them that classic hand up rather than a hand out. It has always seemed to me that it is vitally important to give young people the skills, the self-confidence and the self-esteem to achieve their potential, whether by equipping them for employment or by empowering them to start their own businesses. So I'm delighted that we are now able to take the experience of my trust to a growing number of places around the world through Prince's Trust International. From a base in Barbados, we are expanding the work of Prince's Trust International across the Caribbean, and I can only hope that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as elsewhere, my trust might be able to make some small difference by helping young Vincentians achieve their true potential.
Agriculture and tourism are two sectors which have contributed tremendously to SVG's economy, and over the last 2 days, local and regional experts were engaged in a workshop to explore ways both sectors can create livelihood opportunities. The 2-day Agritourism workshop was hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture and Tourism at the Beachcombers Hotel. Speaking at the opening ceremony, Minister of Agriculture Sabota Caesar reminded the participants that all factors of production must be in place for a business to be successful. He said it is time that as stakeholders in the agriculture and tourism sectors, they begin to examine strategies to move from a subsistence agritourism sector to a commercial one.
Agritourism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we are now and where we want to be. We have to move from subsistence agritourism to commercial agritourism. I know sometimes there are some persons in the tourism development sector who don't like to hear about commercial tourism. But there's something very important for the sustainability of any business. If you don't have customers, if you don't have a throughput, you will not have a viable business. If you don't have a market, you could have the best product in the world. After a while, you'll realize that you are not creating the livelihoods that you expected.
Minister Caesar also encouraged the participants to examine ways to attract the needed capital to take agritourism forward.
Create an industry. You need land. You need labor. You need capital. You have the entrepreneurship and the technology. The farmers already have the land. And in this case, there will be a working relationship between the farmers and persons in the tourism sector so that we can create that product. But we will languish in our quest to create a commercial product if we do not have the capital injection. And we have to spend some time, Steve, not only speaking about the product that we want to have, but how we're going to raise the money to create that product. Because if you don't have the capital to inject, to create the product, you are not going to have a business that can create the sorts of income that will attract other persons to the subsector.
ICA's agritourism expert Enya Harvey said agritourism has many benefits, including assisting with poverty reduction in rural areas, as visitors will directly trade with farmers, allowing for greater earnings.
Why agritourism? What are the benefits of agritourism? Retention of a higher percentage of income by rural people. The World Travel and Tourism Council once did a report saying that Agritourism represents the most direct form of relieving poverty, especially in rural areas, because when a tourist comes to a rural area, they hand the money to a farmer, to a farm family. Diversification of farm income while keeping land in production. Investment and income earning opportunities for women, families, youth, indigenous communities, and value added and retention of origin in rural areas.
The Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment today reports that a male patient who was recently admitted to the pediatric ward of the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital was diagnosed with a rare form of bacterial meningitis. The patient is being treated and is said to be recovering well. The ministry said that in response to the diagnosis, they have commenced public health actions geared at preventing the spread of the condition. The ministry further stated the relevant stakeholders have been contacted and advised on requirements and protocols. Meningitis is an inflammation of the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord. A bacterial or viral infection of the fluid surrounding the brain and spinal cord usually causes the swelling. Jade Andrews of the Turama Government School took the first place position with 43.9 points in the Grade 5 Literacy Enrichment Public Speaking competition held today at the French's House. 8 participants took part in the competition and were judged in 2 categories, the prepared and impromptu speech. The competition was hosted by the Ministry of Education in collaboration with the National Insurance Service. Jeffon Duncan of the Fairhall Government School won the Best Prepared Speech category and came in second overall with 42.5 points. Annalisa Cox of the Pamela's-Burke Primary took third place with 42.3 points and won the Best Impromptu Speech. Here's a snippet of the top 3 participants during the prepared speech presentation, speaking on the topic, "There has been an adequate increase in cruise ship arriving in St. Vincent and direct international flights. Is St. Vincent adequately prepared for the influx of visitors?"
Appalled when I read an article that was sent to the Eyewitness News where patients went to the A&E department and had to wait for more than 10 hours before seeing a doctor. The article further stated that patients were perturbed when they were told that only one doctor was on shift at that time, which had to see every patient in the ward before anyone in the A&E waiting area could have been seen. Madam Chairperson, is this the service we are going to offer the arrivals if they have to be rushed to the A&E?
All the St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a wide range of activities for tourists to indulge in. Do you think that the measures and precautions we have in place presently are enough for our growing tourism industry? We do not have the capacity to host an influx of tourists and limited accommodation due to the lack of hotels. A number of visitors are interested in the true Vincentian culture. But what is the best way to experience the true Vincentian culture if we are not in rural areas?
On the 9th of November 2017, a group of elderly tourists from the cruise ship Britannia were robbed and assaulted at Bentinck Square. One brave off-duty police officer was nearby and tried to apprehend the assailants. However, those criminals were not immediately caught. Madam Chairperson, what choice do you suppose those tourists will make after being robbed by those heartless men? Additionally, if we are to sufficiently deal with the incursion of visitors to sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines, then we undoubtedly must continue to provide a safer transportation system.
Here is a snippet of the top 2 students in the impromptu speech category.
And still, before I got licks, I told Mommy Swiss lie, Mommy Swiss lie. You see, Mommy not play with it again or no. And Mommy beat me, and from that day on, I never tend to lie again. And this is a sign to tell you that
be flogged because it's a form of abuse called physical abuse. I think you could get locked up for it. Sometimes you could be abusing your children and you don't even know it. Flogging is like, okay, say, for example, I'm in school, I did something wrong. My teacher makes a complaint to my mom, and then my mom abuses me by beating me with a belt. That is not really nice because you could get locked up for it.
The preliminary judging for this year's Junior Calypso Soca competition will take place this Friday 22nd March and Saturday 23rd March 2019 at the SVG Red Cross headquarters. The Carnival Development Corporation and the Ministry of Education, which will be hosting the competition, said primary schools would be judged on Friday and secondary schools on Saturday 23rd March, commencing at 9 a.m. and ending at 12 noon on each day.